Well, hello, everyone. I am so glad that you are with me today. Today, we're going to talk about the strengths and challenges faced by Black women in church communities. Black women in church communities experience a unique blend of strengths and challenges, shaped by historical, cultural, spiritual, and social factors. Their roles in the church are often multifaceted, influenced by both their identity as Black women and their deep connection to faith and community. And understanding both the strengths and challenges they face can offer a more nuanced view of their experience. So let's talk about the strengths of Black women in church communities. First, let's address leadership and influence. Black women have been long pivotal leaders in the church, shaping its spiritual and social dynamics. While historically relegated to behind the scenes roles today, many Black women serve as pastors, preachers, and deacons, choir directors, youth leaders, and other positions of influence. Their leadership extends beyond the pulpit into various aspects of church life, providing spiritual direction, guidance, and support to the community. Black women often lead ministries, organize outreach programs, and mobilize the church in social justice efforts, creating lasting impact in their communities. When it comes to resilience and strength, the church has been a place of refuge and empowerment for Black women, particularly given the history of systemic racism and social struggles they face. For Black women, the church serves as a space to draw on both personal and collective resilience, facing adversity with unwavering faith and courage. You see, during times of personal or communal hardship, Black women find solace and strength in their faith, drawing on the historical legacy of survival and resistance embedded in the Black church. When it comes to community and sisterhood, one of the most notable strengths of Black women in church communities is their sense of solidarity and sisterhood. Church spaces provide a unique opportunity for women to come together, support one another emotionally and spiritually, and forge deep, lasting bonds. This communal spirit is a critical source of emotional support and empowerment. Women in the church often form close-knit groups like women's ministries, prayer circles, or fellowship groups where they can share their burdens, joys, and struggles in a safe, supportive environment. Let's talk about the cultural preservation and expression of Black women when it comes to their strengths. Black women play a critical role in preserving and expressing the cultural heritage of the Black church. Through music, preaching, and worship practices, they keep alive the rich traditions of gospel music, spirituals, and other forms of cultural expression. This cultural strength reinforces both their individual and collective identity, offering a space where Black women can assert their voices and experiences. The passionate preaching styles, soulful gospel music, and vibrant church services, often led or heavily influenced by Black women, are expressions of cultural pride and faith. And lastly, when it comes to the strength of Black women in church communities, I want to talk a little bit about spiritual and emotional intelligence. Black women in church communities often bring a deep spiritual maturity and emotional intelligence. Their lived experiences, especially around race, gender, and class, shape their perspective on faith in a way that is empathetic and transformative. This spiritual wisdom enables them to provide practical support, counsel, and leadership that resonates with people in profound ways. Many Black women in church have a unique ability to minister to others with both wisdom and compassion, speaking to the heart of people's struggle and triumphs. So now, let's talk about the challenges. Well, when it comes to gender and leadership barriers, despite their significant contributions, Black women often face barriers to full leadership within the church, particularly when it comes to formal positions like senior pastor or bishop. And while they may lead ministries or serve in other capacities, leadership roles at the top levels of church hierarchies are often still dominated by men. This gender imbalance can lead to frustration and feelings of marginalization. Black women who feel called to preach or lead at the highest levels of the church may encounter resistance or pushback, especially in more conservative or patriarchal church settings. Another challenge that Black women have is the burden of overextension. Black women in church communities often find themselves overextended, shouldering multiple roles and responsibilities, both within the church and outside it. The pressure to imbalance spiritual leadership, family, work, and community involvement can be overwhelming, leading to burnout and stress. And this is especially true for women who are already juggling societal expectations and personal challenges. A Black woman might lead the women's ministry, organize outreach events, sing in the choir, and raise a family, all while trying to maintain her own spiritual and emotional well-being. Another challenge that Black women have is stereotyping and marginalization. Within both the church and broader society, Black women can face stereotypes and marginalization. Within the church, their voices can sometimes be overlooked or undervalued, particularly in denominations or settings where traditional gender roles prevail. They may be expected to provide emotional labor for others while their own needs go unmet. A Black woman might be expected to lead the children's ministry or serve as a caregiver in church, but when it comes to decision-making or high-level leadership, she might be sidelined in favor of a male counterpart. Another challenge is the tension between tradition and progress. Many Black women in church communities navigate the tension between traditional religious practices and the evolving role of women in modern faith communities. While many churches embrace progressive gender roles, others still adhere to conservative views that limit women's leadership and participation, creating a complex and often contradictory environment for women trying to reconcile their faith and their gender identity. A Black woman may be committed to both her faith and feminist ideals, but may struggle to reconcile those with a church that believes in male-only leadership or limits the scope of women's roles. Another challenge is mental health and emotional support. Mental health and emotional well-being are often overlooked in many church communities. Yet, Black women frequently carry the emotional weight of not only their personal struggles, but also those of their families and communities. The expectation to always be strong can stifle any conversation around vulnerability, leading to emotional strain and isolation. Additionally, the stigma around mental health in many Black communities may prevent women from seeking the help they really, really need. A Black woman may feel the pressure to always maintain a strong, joyful front in church, even while dealing with depression, anxiety, or trauma. The lack of safe space for addressing mental health issues can exacerbate this struggle. Lastly, one of the challenges is systemic racism and discrimination. While the Black church has long been a sanctuary for Black people, systemic racism still affects Black women within the church, especially in predominantly white or multiracial denominations. Black women may experience discrimination, exclusion, or microaggressions, not just in the world, but within the church walls as well. A Black woman may face racial discrimination or bias when interacting with members of predominantly white church, or may encounter subtle racism in church leadership positions, impacting her sense of belonging or acceptance. Black women in church communities are a powerful force of spiritual leadership, cultural preservation, and resilience. They draw strength from their faith, their communities, and their shared history. However, they also face unique challenges, particularly around gender inequality, emotional labor, and marginalization. To truly support Black women in the church, it is essential to recognize both their strengths and their struggles, creating an environment where their leadership voices and well-being are fully valued. When asked the question, does white women and Black women have different experiences in the church? My answer would be yes. White women and Black women often have very different experiences in the church and in their communities, shaped by the intersection of race, gender, and the historical cultural context in which they live. While both groups may experience common struggles related to gender inequality, the racial dynamics they face within their respective communities are starkly different. So I want to give you a breakdown of how the experiences might differ in both the church and broader community settings. So let's talk about the experiences in the church. I want to deal with, first of all, leadership and influence. When it comes to Black women, as mentioned earlier, Black women have historically been marginalized in church leadership roles, especially in the higher ranks, like senior pastor and bishop. And while Black women have carved out powerful roles in the church, they often face barriers due to gender and sometimes race, particularly in more conservative or hierarchical denominations. Many Black women in church take on significant leadership roles in ministries, choir directions, teachings, or organizing, but the struggle to attain full formal leadership is a persistent challenge. In many traditional Black churches, women may lead ministries, but not hold positions such as senior pastor, where leadership remains predominantly male, even if women are more involved at the grassroots level. When it comes to white women, while white women can also face gender-based barriers to leadership in the church, they often experience less resistance based on race. In predominantly white churches, women may be more likely to attain leadership roles such as pastors, deacons, and church leaders, especially in progressive or mainline Protestant denominations. However, in more conservative denominations, the challenges of attaining leadership positions still persist based on gender, but not on race. In many white evangelical churches, while gender roles may still be restrictive, there is generally less of a racial barrier, and some white women might be able to serve in leadership roles within women's ministries or other areas of the church. Let's talk about the racial dynamics in worship and community. Black women experience a strong sense of cultural and spiritual belonging in the Black church, where worship styles like gospel music, call and response preaching, and powerful prayer traditions are deeply rooted in their cultural and historical experiences. The church serves as a space of empowerment and resilience, particularly for Black women who can trace their history of survival and spiritual activism to the church. Black women often experience a profound sense of community in these spaces, where the church is not only a place of worship, but also a center for social and political mobilization, providing a sanctuary for addressing the challenges of systemic racism and injustice. In Black churches, Black women lead or participate in rich cultural expressions of faith, such as gospel music or sermons that speak to the Black experience of struggle and triumph. When it comes to my white sisters, on the other hand, they don't generally face the same racial marginalization within their church communities. In predominantly white churches, they may face gender-based challenges, but the racial dynamics of the community are less likely to create obstacles for them. White women may experience church as a space of both spiritual fulfillment and social connection, but without the specific historical or cultural weight that Black women carry. However, white women can still experience exclusion or marginalization depending on denominational doctrines or if they seek leadership roles that are traditionally held by men. White women in some mainline or progressive denominations might have a greater opportunity for leadership or to serve as pastors, but they still encounter struggles for gender equality, especially in conservative branches of the church. When it comes to gender expectations and support networks, in the Black church, women often hold leadership roles within the church community, such as in women's ministries or choir leadership, and are central to the spiritual and emotional life of the congregation. However, there is sometimes a burden of overextension. Black women may be expected to carry the emotional weight of the congregation, providing caregiving roles, organizing events, or offering counsel, often without the same levels of support or recognition of their contributions. Black women may face exhaustion from being the backbone of church life, emotionally, spiritually, and organizationally, while also juggling external pressures like work, family responsibilities, and societal discrimination. My white sisters, on the other hand, while also taking on leadership roles in many church communities, may not experience the same intensity of emotional labor that Black women often do. While the challenges around gender-based expectations remain, particularly in more conservative settings, white women may find greater support networks within church communities, particularly if they hold leadership roles themselves. White women may not carry the same communal or racial burdens, and their leadership might be recognized and supported more visibly in predominantly white settings. When it comes to experiences in broader communities, Black women are the intersection of racism and sexism, facing a unique set of challenges in the broader society. They often contend with racial discrimination in education, the workplace, and public spaces, alongside the gendered expectation and barriers that affect all women. The historical legacy of slavery, segregation, and systemic racism means that Black women have to navigate a world that often marginalizes them, both as women and as people of color. In many public and professional spaces, Black women experience racial microaggressions, limited career advancement, and are disproportionately affected by poverty, unemployment, and incarceration rates. While my white sisters face the challenge of gender inequality in many areas of life, they don't experience the compounded effects of racism. While they may encounter gender-based discrimination such as wage gaps or underrepresentation in leadership positions, they generally have more social privileges due to their racial identity. White women benefit from the systemic advantages that come with being part of the racial majority, even though they still face challenges and related to gender. White women may encounter glass ceilings or challenges in leadership, but they do not face the same level of racial discrimination in the workplace or in education that Black women often do. When it comes to cultural identity and visibility, Black women, I would say in broader communities, especially in predominantly white environments, Black women may feel their cultural identity is misunderstood or marginalized. They often have to navigate between their cultural identity and social expectations, which can lead to feelings of cultural alienation. In predominantly white spaces, they may experience racial invisibility or face stereotypes that undermine their sense of belonging and authenticity. In mainstream media or in predominantly white social settings, Black women may struggle with unrepresentation or stereotypical traits, like the angry Black woman, trope, um, that limit their complexity and humanity. White women generally don't experience the same challenges around cultural visibility or racial identity. They're more likely to find societal narratives that reflect their lived experiences and are often represented in mainstream media, politics, and other cultural spaces. However, they still face challenges related to gender roles and expectations, but they are more visible and less likely to face discrimination based on their race. My white sisters may still face gender biases in certain contexts, but they're much more likely to see positive representations of themselves in popular media and culture. So, what is the conclusion of the matter? Well, the experiences of Black women and white women in church communities and broader society are deeply shaped by their intersectional identities. Black women experiences are unique and they have a unique set of challenges due to the compounded effects of both racism and sexism. While my white sisters generally face gender-based challenges but benefit from the privileges of their race. In the church, Black women often lead and provide emotional labor with a deep connection to cultural heritage, but face barriers to leadership and visibility. White women, while still encountering gender inequality, are often in a more privileged position regarding racial dynamics. And so, understanding these differences is essential to recognizing the ways in which race and gender intersect to create distinct experiences of Black and white women and Black women in the church community. Thank you for listening, and I hope that this have shared insight to you so that we can really, really help each other heal, connect, and unify for the glorious gospel of Jesus Christ and prepare for the coming of our Lord and Savior. He is coming back again for a church without spot or wrinkle. And we want to make sure that we are all ready to receive him. Now, whatever you do, don't forget to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And I hope to see you this time next year in Jerusalem. God bless.